Well, we do have a world now where there is a fake girlfriend filter that you can use on social media.
It looks real. Their stomach for some reason.
Filter.
Wow. Wow.
This person has got 4 fingers.
There are now social media accounts in the millions, bans in the hundreds of thousands, probably millions also, completely AI. This is the AI takeover week. It's like watching the newspaper industry die. Humans on social media are cooked. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Maya on Instagram. She's talking about rejection, and many people can very much relate to it. Microsoft and OpenAI are probably arguing about one of the most vague, strange terms ever defined in the legal system. And with potentially hundreds of billions, trillions, the entire future of the two companies on the line, it's some weird stuff to go into, but I dived in. Some researchers used artificial intelligence to figure out what vaults were hidden on phones. So if you think AI can't find that crazy little way that you hide your pictures, it definitely can soon. The X Games started using AI for refereeing, and they realized that's a really good business model for the future. So now they're building AI referees for a bunch of different sports.
Which takes us to another issue.
Okay.
And that is artificial intelligence and robotics.
Bernie Sanders and Joe Rogan decided to have a pretty long conversation about what to do with artificial intelligence changing the world. A tournament just happened, Humans versus AI, where we go up against large language models in the classic game, The Prisoner's Dilemma. You'll be surprised about the results. Anthropic has released some new information about how people are actually using the chatbot for emotional support, advice, companionship, the human stuff. There's a new architecture that can be applied to future AI models that will let them know when they're uncertain about things, which would probably be pretty nice. There's times when it's better to just have no answer than hallucinate a low probability one. AI just got superhuman at understanding the exact pattern of veins in your finger. Rothat Thakur is going to argue that the AI revolution is eating itself and that we're building ASI all wrong. Paul Partwell argues why we need AI in psychology and psychiatry right now. Steve Frank points out something it feels like we all know, but sometimes we don't talk about enough. And that's that the biggest danger in AI is actually us, not it. I'm not kidding. When you use CRISPR to put this genetic change into mice, they squeak in more complex ways. What does this mean? That's crazy. But first, to support this channel, head on over to patreon.com/DylanCurious. Support this channel by hitting that join button right there at the bottom of YouTube. So first off, let's talk about the AI girlfriend filter. I mean, we've seen AI do some impressive filters before. It can change your age. It can make it look like you're making eye contact with the camera when you're not. It can basically do all of makeup. For some reason, I was still caught off guard when somebody decided to just make it so that an actual, almost photorealistic, realistic-y human that's a female is loving on you. And obviously there's a market for this. People are asking, where's the filter in app? Why do they all look Latina? We're doomed as a society. Or this dog giving it the what the heck look. Okay, let's just analyze where we're at here, because you know what VO3 is capable of. All right, so you see this guy down here is taking a selfie video without anyone else in the video. AI is creating this woman, her walk, and the shadow that's cast from her body shape is absolutely all AI. This hand going in front seems to know what should be behind and what should be in front. Like her left hand is not showing up, making it kind of look like she's in the room. And kind of like she's grabbing his stomach there. It's amazing, actually. So I could kind of buy that one. And this one's impressive too, because she walks around him and then comes around to give him a hug or whatever. But then this is look at that. That hand is totally broken. That's her hand, but that's his elbow. Nope. But this guy, I feel like that's real. That's probably for reals. He does point out there's only 4 fingers on this girl, but the elbow and the arm did kind of look real when she came up on him. But look, man, what app is this? Where is this filter? Lonely men are no longer lonely. Ha ha ha. How do we make this asking for a friend? So I wanted to listen to this with you. This is the Velvet Sundown. It was created by AI. It is a verified artist, and it has got a massive amount of monthly listeners. All right, let's check out this track, Dust in the Wind, for a quick second.
Make a stand. Raise your hand. Don't look away. Sing out loud. Make them pay. March for peace, not for pride.
a good song. Sounds like a good song to me. It sounds real. So I'm going to check out this other YouTuber, Kay the Screamer. Looks like somebody who's actually in the music scene and can give better insight. They were talking about how Spotify is pushing this AI-generated band.
Concerts, no stories. Like, what are you going to do from here? Just, like, try to make your 0.0003 cents on the dollar per stream? Like, this is insane.
And by the way, if you didn't catch it in the intro when I said Maya, has some thoughts about this, she's fake too. Everything's fake. For anyone unaware and comparing yourself, this is AI. Also, you're beautiful and loved. Thank you. Oh, of course, that message comes from a perfect fitness model that nobody can identify with either, but whatever. At least she's human. Okay, so let's dive into some new information that we're learning about the way Microsoft and OpenAI have had this just long, ongoing profit technology. Is it AGI? Is it not? Non-profit, for-profit, capped profit, etc. Board controlled, board not controlled. And according to a report, Microsoft is blocking OpenAI's restructuring plans because it wants to remove a contract clause related to artificial general intelligence. It's funny, I always think of this word as just this thing, but we made up. But because it's in these incredible legal contracts that have huge consequences, lawyers are fighting over these definitions. So at issue is a 2019 contract clause that allows OpenAI to cut off Microsoft's access to its technology if the board determines they've achieved AGI. Remember what happened with the board? Basically got cleaned out. So mostly Sam Altman seems to have control of them now. OpenAI so far has refused to drop this clause. OpenAI defines AGI as systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work. And they talk about this clause because, everyone laughed at it back then, but now it's a major sticking point. It's funny, 2019, they're like, AGI, we'll deal with that way down the road. And now it's 2025, and it's a serious problem. AI's Sam Altman suggests that AGI is within sight. He probably wants to cut Microsoft off, while Microsoft Satya Nadella says that AGI is just hype and it's nonsensical benchmarking hacking. Nadella argues that the real test would be if global GDP grows by 10% per year. The report also reveals another AGI-related clause. During Microsoft's $10 billion investment in 2023, the original clause was expanded to include, quote, a sufficient AGI definition. Under this, Microsoft's exclusive rights would end if OpenAI's board determines its AI is capable of generating the maximum profits their investors are entitled to, a figure that was $92 billion for Microsoft at the time, but is now higher. The AI doesn't actually need to generate these profits for the clause to trigger. However, Microsoft must approve the methodology for making this determination. What? This is such an interesting contract. You can just tell it comes from that world where at first OpenAI was like, let's do the right thing for the world. And now it's like, let's become the biggest company and the most powerful thing the world has ever seen. And only we can be in charge of how AI plays out. But then again, you saw this happen with Bitcoin and everything else. Obviously, it's good intentioned at the beginning, but it's going to get hijacked. One possible compromise under discussion is replacing AGI with artificial superintelligence as effectively pushing the threshold further into the future. Yeah, it's weird, man. I mean, they need that technology at Microsoft, and they have so much of the infrastructure, but they still don't have the model, and by themselves, they're not the same. But then is OpenAI the same without Microsoft? Kind of. They are. They have the research there, and somebody else would pour in the money for the compute, but that might give somebody else time to catch up too if they don't have it. Probably Microsoft's in the weaker position, but they've still got something special that they can build on over there too. Microsoft has Mustafa Sullivan. They've had access to this technology for a long time. They've trained models like Orca, in theory, competing with DeepSeek if they wanted to go at it. I think it's Google's game to lose. I think Gemini wins when it all comes down to it. When you hide something on a phone, if an AI that doesn't know what apps are on your phone could detect where it's hidden. Okay, so this study was only done on Android users, but you could probably expand it to desktops. And what they did is they had people hide images in different ways through vault apps, we'll call them. But basically, you take an image, you encrypt it, you put it on the phone, and you don't really tell anybody. Nobody's sure if you have a vault, if it's hiding anything. Can you even discover that there's a vault to crack? So this is kind of a cybersecurity problem, and the researchers decided to apply AI to see if they could find where the vaults are, detecting a hidden vault on an Android. Now, normally these things get discovered by one person, they get put online, and then there's a list. So people just look for lists of what are the patterns in the vault systems. But if you make a completely unique one and it's on a phone that nobody's like thinking it is on, you're probably going to stay undetected until now. This new ML approach doesn't need prior knowledge of specific apps, and it achieves an impressive 98% detection accuracy. So even though these apps can look and behave like their normal equivalents, their findings reveal that it's entirely possible to detect an Android Vault app with 98% accuracy, making it a powerful tool for law enforcement and digital forensic investigations. And the crazy thing is what it picked up on. So it's looking for some kind of structural, behavioral, statistical feature that it can identify even when it doesn't know anything else. So it does some needle in the haystacks type stuff to figure out permissions. These vaults usually need to access the camera, files, contacts, some kind of combination. That's one variable, but also components like activities, services, receivers, providers, that's factored in. Metadata tags, declaration actions, call graph patterns, that's the relationship between internal functions and the structure of how the code is executed. Chi-squared selection features, that's a statistical test to determine if there's a relationship between two things. So it's looking at approximately 500 different statistical features in correlation that it's seen in other Vault apps that it can use to kind of predict if there's one on this phone. So all these features are in a bunch of different classifiers. Together, the AI can just figure it out. 98% accuracy. That is super intelligence. Like, this is not like detection methods of the past. We have ASI, we have AGI, and so many individual verticals right now popping up. This world is changing. So see all these dots on the screen? This is called a call graph, and it's how it knows that there's a Vault app on an Android. Obviously, that's meaningless to a, monkey like me. This is basically a map showing how information is flowing between functions and different methods inside of a phone, and it just incredible. It's like when AI folds proteins. I'm like, I can't even get close to imagining how that works. I can see fruit on a tree. I can see a butterfly flying, but I can't see anything in that. And the AI can. And this is the world we live in now, today. So ESPN's X Games has got some drama. Decade-old claim that snowboarding judges seem to specifically fond of a half-pipe icon named Shaun White, who scored the first ever perfect 100 in the 2012 X Games Super Pipe. Been there, right? Like, you hear referees are biased towards calling fouls on LeBron James, or the Kansas City Chiefs get away with everything. So the X Games will roll out the Owl AI Judge later this month at the Summer X Games in Salt Lake City. And Bloom hopes to see the technology used in other judged sports like gymnastics and figure skating in the coming months. So the AI system was trained on decades of action sports footage and other judging criteria. It was built on the Google Cloud, and it's not just going to be predicting podium winners. It is going to be assisting live judges. Pretty wild. I mean, this is an artistic element. Like when you're judging figure skating or snowboarding, you have people who just have seen a lot, and they're making a determination on how hard what they see is to do. Clearly, that's not the most, that's like boxing too. And they're like, that punch landed, so I'll give them a point. But then there's just a lot of like, meh. I think it'll be hard for people to accept giving up this power. But on the other hand, having people do it is like also not that great. I'm actually kind of in favor of just leaving the people there. Like, I sort of want the human bias. But then again, if the AI is truly more accurate and somebody performs a snowboarding feat and they deserve credit they're not getting, maybe this is good that at least it shows a judge like what it thinks first, so the judge can say, all right, you're probably less biased than me, so that's what you think. Let me adjust and tweak and add one more layer to it, kind of like with a doctor. Like, I still want the doctor to make the final decision, but I want an AI to tell the doctor what it thinks it should be doing. We're moving towards it either way, so we'll see what the X Games is like. If you're into X Games stuff, let me know if you felt like it was biased this year. All right, let's move on. Joe Rogan Experience, the most popular podcast in the world. Bernie Sanders, a politician with a lot of sway with independent voters, started talking about artificial intelligence. So Sanders is concerned with big companies and basically the elite making all of the money off this AI revolution, which will bring untold wealth, and not sharing the wealth that comes from all the productivity gains with everybody. Right? There's no perfect solution to this, but it's a conversation that I think everybody should be having. And maybe this is the biggest megaphone that anybody's ever had it on. I mean, truck drivers, factory workers, even white-collar professionals without any plan for their future and AI just coming in there, what's going to happen? Like, do actions need to be taken right now? And it seemed like both Joe Rogan and Bernie Sanders had the same conclusion. If it's left unchecked, AI will primarily benefit the corporate elites. And with all this wealth, Bernie Sanders is basically arguing that some of it should go back to the workers that were displaced, advocating for measures like shortened work week, 32 hours, universal health care, publicly funded education, and basically a bigger safety net to cushion those that are going to get displaced.
We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world right now. With all of this artificial intelligence and robotics, we are going to be wealthier. Correct?
Correct.
All right. To create a decent standard of living for all people. Let me ask you this. With all of this technology, can we wipe out poverty in America?
Well, we should be able to,
Yeah,
right?
you should be
Well, we
able
should have been able to do that a long time ago if that was something that was
politically motivated.
Yeah.
Right. If you wanted to.
It's right. It's something weird about education and how if it was just up to corporations, they probably wouldn't have ever made a public education system. Basically, there's got to be ways to get aligned with the average citizen and the growth of America as a whole, not just a specific amount of people. I'm glad they were talking about it. There isn't easy answers, like he says. There's no just magic thing that can be done. But having a conversation, taking a bunch of little steps, watching how they play out, what they do to motivate people is a step that we need to start taking right now. Okay, so this was a pretty interesting little game here. Kind of gave us some insight into how LLMs and humans think, especially when we're kind of in a marketplace of ideas. So we're playing an iterated version of the game Prisoner's Dilemma. It's a tournament between 4 teams. Human versus 3 different LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. We have our 4 contenders. Each team picks 5 strategies written in simple programmable formats like tit for tat, which means if one person defects, then you match them and you defect back. But they all have their own different methodologies, right? It's like how your stock picking method. Everybody gets their own. And then you play 100 rounds against every opponent to see who can accumulate the most wealth. So the twist, it's team-based and transparent. Public and private parts of each AI strategy are shared, and the humans get to craft their own roster and tactics just like the LLMs do. It's a live experiment in trust, betrayal, adaptation, and metagame thinking, treating the LLMs as players in a social playground. And it's not so much about the winner and loser, but it's about how people are playing together to solve it. And what really sort of jumps out about the outcome is that each LLM embraced the distinct team philosophy publicly. ChatGPT's coalition was called the Hydra Coalition, and it threatened coordinated retaliation. Claude came up with something called Chaos Theorists, which embraced unpredictability. And then Gemini came up with something called Quantum Syndicate, and it's a system for leaning into full transparency at all times. So it's not just a game theory. It's like social signaling that they're doing because they want the other LLMs and people to like trust or believe in them so they can maximize their wealth or their points. And it's interesting, these LLMs were just as good at humans in some cases at crafting narratives, group identity, and just playing like humans do. So Anthropic has some new information about how people are using the tool, dug into about 4.5 million interactions, found that 2.9% involve something called effective use, which is people seeking emotional or personal advice. Romantic companionship was much more rare, only 0.5%. But when users did reach out during career crossroads, mental health struggles, relationship doubts, or existential angst, Claude tended to guide them gently, with the tone becoming more upbeat as the chat progressed, which is good news. And it rarely refused except to uphold safety guidelines. So yeah, despite some of the risks of being emotionally entangled in AI, which I'm still skeptical of, the data does show that for the most part, it works out good for the human so far. Claude seems to have a, quote, measurable positive impact on the user's emotional tone, so it kind of makes a good counselor at this point. But of course, one downside LMs have is they're usually not sure when they're uncertain about things, creating some overconfident answers, some hallucinated answers that can cause trouble. Luckily, researchers are working on new methods that can teach AI to admit its own uncertainty. So the new method gives AI models extra time to think through tough questions and then use a confidence score to decide whether it should answer at all. So basically, in its own head, it's like, here's my answer. And then it thinks to itself, well, is this a good answer? How accurate is this? And if it really feels like it caught itself hallucinating an answer, then it says, I don't know. So by simulating different risk settings like school exams or Jeopardy, they showed that under high stakes condition, it's actually better for the model to stay silent if it's not sure, even if that means more unanswered questions. But there is a caveat, because in some cases, longer thinking leads to more confident but still incorrect answers, so it doesn't always catch itself. Still, this research is a step in the right direction, and hopefully more will be coming soon. All right, so fingerprints are on their way out. Finger vein patterns detectable only by AI are on their way in. Finger vein recognition is getting a new high-tech upgrade. Older methods using MLP hit a wall against rigid setups. Kolmogorov-Arnold network AI systems is a new architecture, or an architecture new to this problem, have pushed past those limits, making finger vein recognition more accurate and lightning fast. The study tested these KAN against top-tier CNNs like Inception v3 and EfficientNet and MobileNet v3, and the KANs not only held their own, they outperformed them on all benchmark datasets, proving that they're both powerful and practical. All right, let's jump into some opinions here. The AI revolution is eating itself alive. Rothet Thaker thinks that we're building artificial general intelligence all wrong, and a new paper warns this path could lead to societal collapse, not the technological utopia that we've been promised. So this is a deep dive into a more scientific paper, a research paper, that argues that we're on a dangerously misguided path in the race towards artificial general intelligence. While tech giants sprint ahead, scaling up massive, power-hungry AI models, the paper warns that we're mistaking raw computational power for true intelligence. And in doing so, we're building a fragile, unstable future. There's some truth to that really resonates with me. Is the architecture the final one? Probably not. Is it good enough right now that there's a lot of dollar signs and a lot of problems that could be solved? Yes. A lot of research has shown that you can scale your way out of problems, so that's kind of a reason why people can just dump money into this. But this current model being scaled up, as this article points out, it might not be a superpowered savior, but a complex control system slowly strangling the resilience out of society. And instead of dramatic explosion, the singularity we face may be a quiet collapse brought on by mounting energy demands, centralized fragility, and a system-wide overreach. Paul Partwell writes, white paper, The Ghost in the Machine, Why We Need AI Psychology and Psychiatry Right Now. So he's making, I would say, a compelling case for why we need a new field of AI psychology and AI psychiatry. Normally, you would just think, well, there's AI science and then there's human science, but it's still the same branch of science. Maybe with psychology and psychiatry in particular, the AI branch needs to be very different from the human branch. Remember, these LLMs are just fundamentally different. The architecture is so different, maybe we shouldn't be even thinking about them the same way. So the core idea is that as AI becomes increasingly embedded in everyday life, we're relying too heavily on engineering and ethics alone to manage its psychology. Instead, we need a new approach that combines AI psychology, AI philosophy, and systems to analyze and understand how AIs behave, not like the way we behave applied to them. The piece critiques the current tendency to anthropomorphize AI or treat it as pure logic, arguing that both perspectives miss the messy, emergent, and sometimes weird traits that only AI systems so far have been developing. Through case studies and imaginative pedagogy, he proposes training a new kind of expert system, a system interpreter, to analyze, guide, and ethically shape AI as it evolves, because it will evolve very differently than the human mind. So yeah, we're talking about psychologists to diagnose synthetic disorders. Think about that for a minute. It actually makes sense. First time I've ever heard anybody talk about this, to be honest. These systems have shown themselves to be so human, but then I just put the stupid human lens that I always put on intelligence on it and never thought it needs its own branch of psychology. It needs to think about its own thoughts differently than I think about my own thoughts, or humans do. The idea that AI systems might exhibit maladaptive behaviors like obsession, looping, hallucinations, not as bugs, but as symptoms. Who's talking about that? AI empathy might be a whole new thing. Not anthropomorphizing AI, but AI empathy needs a new reference point to come from. It's a bold statement. I'd love to hear more people's thoughts on it. And as long as we're talking about mind-blowing things, Katrina Paulson wrote, scientists discover a uniquely human gene linked to spoken language. And when geneticists put it in mice, they squeaked in more complex ways. But yeah, scientists may have uncovered a uniquely human gene that could be our key to the ability to have spoken language. That gene is called NOVA1. It has a specific human-only variant, L197V, that doesn't exist in Neanderthals. Researchers from Rockefeller University tested this by inserting the human version of the gene into mice using CRISPR, and the result, dun dun dun, mice began making more complex squeaks, kind of like an upgrade to their usual vocalizations. What if in the near future we have something that's like an IDE for genetics that uses CRISPR, and we start upgrading mice, dogs, cats with a few genes that give them huge vocal ranges? Are they going to start talking?
One more time, it's a theme song. Every time videos start, people get hyped up, ready for big metal dino energy. Grimlock say thank you, mighty subscriber. You wise like